UFO sightings to cattle mutilations, a ranch in the Uinta Basin has been home to numerous bizarre and terrifying events, and it's now the subject of its own TV series on the History Channel.
UFO sightings to killing and cutting up cattle. There have been many strange and scary things happen at a ranch in the Uinta Basin, and now it has its own TV show on the History Channel. Strange things happen every day at Skinwalker Ranch, including strange lights, creatures that can't be explained, and a past full of stories about ghosts and other supernatural things. But one scary night, something happened that not even the tough crew could explain. As they looked over the footage, they saw something so scary that it made them unable to move. It wasn't a reflection, a glitch, or the way the light was shining. It was something very bad. Everything stopped right then. The filming was put on hold. There was one question that everyone on the site had. What did they just see? While the team looked at the playback, the air became tense, like when you suddenly question something you thought you knew. The unexpected had shown up, but what had they really found? There is more to Skinwalker Ranch's past than just a bunch of strange events. It's a mysterious and dark history that goes back hundreds of years. This is deep in the Uinta area in northeastern. For generations, the ranch in Utah has been the site of strange events that no one can explain. Native American groups, especially the Ute, have been warning people for a long time about the Skinwalkers, who are said to have dark magical powers and can change their appearance. The land was holy ground for them, a place where the spiritual and physical worlds seemed to merge. But when people from outside the area started to enter this holy land, they were met with the scary results of disturbing what should have been left alone. Today, Skinwalker Ranch is a popular place to look into the supernatural, drawing researchers, experts, and thrill seekers who want to find the truth behind the scary image of the ranch. Many mysterious events have been recorded over the years. Animals being cut up, strange lights in the sky, things that can't be identified, and even strange weather patterns. These events, however, were only the tip of the iceberg. People have seen and talked to UFOs at this ranch for decades, which is why it is part of UFO myth. But what really makes Skinwalker Ranch stand out is how often these strange things happen. There is something going on here that can't be explained normally. But no one has ever been able to figure out what happened at the place, even though many people have tried. As more proof is gathered, more questions start to come up. Some people say the land is cursed, while others think it leads to another world. Over time, Skinwalker Ranch has come to mean the unknown and a place where real life doesn't follow the rules. As the investigation team at the ranch looked over video footage from their most recent trip, they were about to learn something very scary about their own investigation. What was seen on the screen wasn't just another strange event. It was impossible to explain, and the team was left speechless in questioning everything they knew. They believed they knew about the land. There was something new and much darker that had just been shown. It was just another night to begin with. Back at base camp, the Skinwalker Ranch research team was going over hours of video footage they had taken during the day's work. Strange things happened all the time to the team, like seeing strange lights in the sky and hearing sounds they couldn't explain. But what they were about to watch on replay would completely change their view of what was going on at Skinwalker Ranch. When they first looked at one of the infrared clips from the previous night's video, everything seemed normal, the familiar empty landscape, the shadows coming in from the frame's edges. Then it took place. Just out of the camera's view, a shape that was moving too quickly to be real showed up. It was just a blur at first. But as the sensors in the camera were tweaked, the picture got better. The AI team had never seen anything like it before, even though it looked like a person. It looked like a shadow, but the shape moved in a way that didn't make sense, too quickly and too smoothly. It stopped for a very short time. The crew stopped talking right in the middle of the shot. It was a strange silence, as if the air around them was holding its breath. It looked like the figure was part of the night because it was so still and blended in with the darkness. After a short time, it quickly disappeared, leaving only a feeling of dread. What they had just seen made the whole group unable to move. First, no one spoke. Everyone on the team just stared at the screen, trying to figure out what had happened. Was the camera playing a joke on you? A bug in the system for infrared light? Even after playing the video again, it was very clear. They could see something or someone that had just come into view. Something that didn't belong there. They looked over their gear and made sure it was all working properly, with no problems or distortions. They were seeing things that were real. At that very moment, the air in the room felt denser and heavy. The group was filled with an undeniable fear. Even people who had lived on the ranch for years and seen a lot of strange things couldn't ignore the chilling thought that they had just seen something that was nothing like what they were expecting. Of course, the team. Even though they were calm and ready for anything, they were at a loss. After seeing something impossible, the scary truth began to sink in. Skinwalker Ranch had just shown them something much darker than they thought it would be. The team could only stare at the screen in shock. They had a million questions in their minds, but none of them could offer an answer. What they had just seen was different from anything else they had seen on the land. This wasn't just a shadow or a brief picture. There was a figure, something real and clever that seemed to have moved with purpose. When the replay was over, what they had just seen hung in the air like a thick, heavy weight. Each team member was thinking about it in their own way. Some people were frozen with shock, while others were scared. But they were all shocked by the same terrifying truth. There wasn't just another supernatural event going on. They were up against something much more planned. There was a reason why the person on the screen showed up. It had been planned and organized. That made everything else they had done on the land seem like nothing compared to what they had seen. It was an easy question that was now up in the air. What did that mean? The usual confidence the crew brought to each probe seemed to fade as they talked about what to do next. They were all taught how to deal with the unknown and get past fear and doubt. But this wasn't like that. They had always known that strange things had happened at Skinwalker Ranch in the past. Still, they couldn't help but wonder if what they were dealing with wasn't just supernatural, but also smarter or more aware. The team leader, who looked shaky, told them to stop for. Take a moment to regroup. They had to think about what they had seen. They needed time to think about whether the evidence they had found was really proof of something amazing or if there was another answer they had missed. Deep down, though, they all knew this wasn't just a glitch or a light trick. There was no way to make sense of the movement using reasoning or technical terms. The way the figure stopped and looked at them before going away. There was a reason for it. It wasn't just a mistake. The thing that was there seemed to have known they were there and was getting back to it. Not because of what they didn't know, but because they were sure they were no longer in charge of the situation. Fear set in. They used to think they understood the land, but it was becoming something much darker. Everyone agreed that filming should stop. The crew had to think, talk, and most importantly, get ready. They knew what they had just seen wasn't a strange event. It was a message. The crew of Skinwalker Ranch sat in a circle in a tense room, thinking about what had happened. What they had just seen. They were used to the unknown because they had spent a lot of time writing down strange things that happened on the land. But this was not like that. The picture on the replay wasn't just another strange event in a long line of supernatural happenings. There was something planned and knowing about it. The crew didn't know whether to keep looking into things or give up and leave the land for good. Some people said they were about to find something really important and groundbreaking. They had the video. The proof was with them. Why are you stopping now? Others, on the other hand, were filled with an unmistakable fear. The place had been strange before, but what if this new thing was too much for them to handle? What if they were dealing with something smart, something that knew they were there the whole time? The team's view of their research changed in a scary way when they realized that the thing they saw on the video had been watching and waiting. They no longer felt in charge of their study, which was a feeling of control they used to have. They were now the ones being watched. As they talked about what to do next, the conversation got heated. Some said they couldn't leave now, because they had just caught something important. The video was good and too interesting to ignore. Some people said that putting their lives in danger for no scientific finding was worth it. They came to Skinwalker Ranch to find answers, but the answers were starting to feel more like threats than facts. The team leader finally made the call after what seemed like hours of back and forth. It was decided to keep shooting, but there was one catch. Not only cameras were not enough for them. They needed the right safety. They would improve their tools, hire more security, and begin a more thorough and careful probe. But no one could deny the fear that was there, even as the words were spoken. They were no longer just looking for answers. They were now after something that might have been after them too. For the next night's shoot, the crew got ready, but there was one question that kept going through their thoughts. Would they be able to handle the truth they were about to find? Making the choice to keep shooting wasn't easy. But when it got dark again at Skinwalker Ranch, the crew set out with new tools, determined to find more proof and maybe even the truth. But there was something else in the air that made people feel uneasy. It felt like the land around them knew they were there because the air was charged. It felt like every sound was intensified. Every sound the trees made and the wind's creak felt like it was meant to be there. They were no longer just guests, it was like the ranch had moved overnight. They were breaking in. As the group set up their cameras and checked their gear, there was a palpable sense of tension in the air. The members used to be sure of their goal, but now they moved slowly and were always aware of what was going on around them.